Okay, let's unpack this. Our first deep dive today comes from the editorial section, an article titled India's Digital Sovereignty at Risk from UK Trade Deal. This piece raises some fascinating and, frankly, quite surprising points about a recent trade agreement. Union Minister Piyush Goyal lauded the India-UK Free Trade Agreement, often referred to as CETA, the Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, as the gold standard. He asserted that no sensitive sectors were compromised. But, well, this editorial argues forcefully that the digital sector, which is absolutely crucial for India's future, was indeed compromised. And this was despite an initial lack of sort of official comment or media scrutiny.
Yeah, what's particularly striking here is that the article sees this as a huge departure, like a complete reversal almost from India's long-held positions at places like the WTO. It highlights two main giveaways that fundamentally shift the landscape. The first one is India's sovereign right to seek anti-access to source code for foreign digital goods or services. This is presented as like a dramatic 180-degree turn.
Ex-ante-access. Right. Can you just clarify what that means exactly compared to, say, ex-post?
Sure. So ex ante means the right to examine the source code before a foreign digital good or service is deployed in the country. It's not just a technical point. It's vital for assessing safety, national security, compliance with our own rules, especially now with software underpinning, well, pretty much everything. Critical telecom infrastructure, AI, health
Right.
systems.
Right. It's embedded everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is totally different from ex post access, which is allowed for specific investigations after something's already gone wrong. And it's interesting, even the U.S., which used to push for these kinds of prohibitions in their trade deals, they actually reversed their stance last year. They recognized their own domestic needs.
Huh. Okay, so the U.S. changed tack.
They did. And the concern the article raises is that this UK FTA applies this prohibition to all software, including stuff inside critical infrastructure. That seems like a really significant and maybe risky step for India.
That certainly sounds like a major strategic shift, especially given how deep software runs in, well, everything we rely on. What other key areas did the article flag where India might have, given ground? What are the implications there?
Well, the second big concession, and okay, it's currently framed at a best endeavor level, so maybe not strictly binding just yet, but it involves granting equal and non-discriminatory access to open government data to UK parties.
Open government data. Historically, that just meant, like, public stats for transparency, right?
It did. But now, in our digital era, data is, well, it's the most valuable resource out there, so especially for training AI. So the article finds it really puzzling that India, with these big ambitions to be an AI superpower, seems to have conceded that national data held by the government isn't really a sovereign resource, that it's more like an international free-for-all.
Wow, an international free-for-all with government data. That sounds risky.
It does pose substantial risks, yeah.
Yeah.
Not just to India's competitive edge in developing its own AI, but also, serious national security concerns. National data could potentially be leveraged, maybe even weaponized, in ways we can't even foresee right now.
It's quite concerning. And the article also mentioned a dangerous regress on free flow of data and data localization, noting the U.S. reversed its stance on those too. What's the bigger picture here for India's digital path?
Right. The article really hammers home a crucial point. Digital trade concessions aren't like tariffs on, say, grain or steel. You can't easily undo them. They're long-term, often irreversible. They basically set the rules for this new global digital order. Once these digital rules and systems are locked in, rolling them back is almost impossible. You've got entrenched interests, tech dependencies.
So we could be locking ourselves into something we can't get out of later.
That's the central concern, yes, that India might be cementing its place in a global digital setup without a clear, proactive strategy, sort of reacting rather than leading with a well-defined roadmap for its own digital future.
And the article speculates maybe this happened because there isn't a strong enough political voice, a constituency, specifically for digital sovereignty. It even draws that really stark parallel to India's colonial past, risking control over our digital future like we lost control over other resources.
Precisely, and that leads to the article's conclusion. India urgently needs to formulate a comprehensive policy, a digital sovereignty and digital industrialization policy. This policy would then be the guide, informing trade talks, making sure India carves out the space to actually become a digital superpower, and avoids becoming, as the article puts it so vividly, a digital colony. It's a real call for a robust, forward-thinking national strategy.
Okay, so from safeguarding our digital future, a definite strategic battleground, let's pivot slightly. Let's talk about protecting our natural assets, which are proving just as crucial for national resilience. Our next deep dive takes us to an article about mangroves, also from the editorial section. You might typically just see them as, nice biodiversity spots. But the authors argue they're actually vital economic and climate infrastructure.
That's a really good way to frame it, because historically, yeah, mangroves have been kind of sidelined in policy, seen as just ecological reserves, but that ignores their absolutely critical role, right? They anchor coastal economies, protect millions from climate extremes. The article stresses that losing them isn't just bad for the environment, it's a big economic hit too. They act as natural buffers, they support huge fisheries, they provide billions in what they call ecosystem services, and avoided damages.
Billions. Wow.
Yeah, and in a world facing more extreme weather, rising seas, these blue carbon ecosystems are just critical for climate and economic resilience. This huge value, it rarely shows up properly on balance sheets or in integrated policies.
So, given how valuable they clearly are, how can businesses, governments, communities, how can they rethink this? How do we actually integrate the value of mangroves into planning and investment?
Well, the Mangrove Coalition, which the article mentions, suggests three key pillars for this shift. First is mapping with technology, using advanced tools, satellites, drones, AI data for really accurate mapping, and also for quantifying blue carbon precisely. This detailed data is crucial for good policy and smart investments, and the economic value can be massive. Like the article cites figures, 3,535 million in Pichavaram and Tamil Nadu,
That's huge.
and an even bigger euro 664 billion in the Sundarbans, West Bengal. And these aren't just plucked out of thin air. They come from analyzing all the services mangroves provide, coastal protection, carbon storage, fish nurseries. It's about translating that natural capital into economic terms. Carbon sequestration alone in the Sundarbans, valued at 462 million a year. But crucially, the article stresses the local communities, the ones with deep knowledge who rely on these ecosystems. They must be prioritized and benefit equitably from any conservation efforts.
That makes total sense. Their lived experience, that traditional knowledge, it's invaluable, isn't it? What's the second pillar they talk about?
The second pillar is all about involving communities. The article really emphasizes community-led conservation. It strengthens that symbiotic link between people and nature. Fisherfolk, for instance, they know how vital mangroves are as fish nurseries. Healthy mangroves mean better catches, sustainable livelihoods. Simple as that. And when communities directly see these benefits, more fish, cleaner air, better storm protection for their homes, they naturally become the best stewards, right? They're empowered. The article also points to things like alternative livelihoods, aquaculture, maybe beekeeping, ecotourism, and even suggests models like eco-development committees, especially for urban mangroves, to really foster engagement.
Okay, technology, community involvement. What's the third pillar? How does that fit in?
The third is citizen science. This means actively getting a wide range of people involved in monitoring these ecosystems. It can supplement or sometimes even substitute for formal monitoring. Plus, it builds that sense of wonder, that direct connection, and it helps mobilize action. The article specifically notes how connected mangrove health is to nearby wetlands and rivers. So regular participatory monitoring gives you crucial, real-time insights into the whole system's health, helps spot problems early.
I like that idea of mangrove mitras or friends of mangroves. Using that as a platform, it builds that people, wetland, river, mangrove connection, makes it feel like a shared responsibility.
Absolutely, the core message is clear. Sustainable stewardship isn't top-down. It can't be. It has to be this symbiotic relationship where mangrove health and people's well-being reinforce each other. Policymakers, businesses, they need to shift their view. See mangroves as vital infrastructure, not just pretty scenery. Protecting and restoring them needs everyone working together, scientists, businesses, and crucially, authentic community voices. That's the only way to secure their future.
Okay, while that last deep dive looked at safeguarding natural assets, our next article, well, it exposes a really disturbing reality rooted in human exploitation. We're turning now to the Ground Zero section, which uncovers India's surrogacy black market unveiled. This is an investigative piece, and it lays bare a deeply troubling baby-selling racket, operating under the guise of fertility treatments in Telangana. It starts with this shocking case. Sonam and Akshay from Rajasthan. They paid a huge amount, 30 lakh, for a baby through surrogacy. But after they received the child, they did a DNA test and discovered it wasn't biologically theirs. Just heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the police investigation that followed that case, it uncovered this really shocking, extensive network. The clinic involved, Universal Shrishti Fertility Center, was found to have cheated at least 15 couples, charging them between 20 and 30 lakh each, and then giving them babies with no genetic link to them. The clinic didn't even have the proper licenses, apparently, and was caught using forged documents to try and cover its tracks.
Unbelievable. And how were they getting these babies? And even more disturbing, the surrogates. What did the investigation find there?
The investigation revealed a truly disturbing pattern of exploitation. Agents would specifically target vulnerable women, often women seeking abortions. They'd offer them money to continue the pregnancy. Then the babies were taken and passed off illicitly as legitimate surrogacy babies to these unsuspecting couples.
Hmm.
In some awful cases, the women weren't even paid, just abandoned after delivery. The article even mentions the horrific death of a surrogate in Hyderabad fell from a building, allegedly trying to escape a sexual assault.
That's just horrific.
It is. And on the donor side, a raid on a facility called Indian Sperm Tech found 17 sperm and 11 egg donors.
Mhm.
These donors, many desperate for cash, were paid tiny amounts like €1,000, €200 for a sperm sample. Exploited. And this facility also operating without a license, just collecting, processing, selling samples to clinics involved in this racket.
It's deeply disturbing that a network like this could operate for so long. And the article points out the clinic owner, Namratha. She had a history, right? Scandals before, including a 2016 incident where her license was suspended for 5 years and a lifetime ban on surrogacy procedures. Yet she still tried to get her license back after the suspension. That just highlights the systemic problems, doesn't it?
Of persistence, yet, despite the ban.
Yeah.
It really underscores the challenge of enforcing these laws. Now, in response to practices like this, the Surrogacy Regulation Act 2021 was brought in to try and bring order and ethics to this whole area. Under this act, only altruistic surrogacy is allowed, meaning the surrogate gets no payment beyond the medical costs and insurance. Commercial surrogacy is banned, punishable by serious penalties up to 10 years in jail, big fines. All procedures have to be at registered clinics following strict medical and ethical rules.
Okay, so there are laws trying to stop this.
All right. And there's also the Assisted Reproductive Technology, or RT Regulation Act 2021, that mandates that donors have to come only through registered RT banks. With Aadhaar-linked records, that's India's biometric ID system. Plus, comprehensive screening to ensure confidentiality and proper tracking.
So the legal frameworks are there, designed to prevent exactly these kinds of abuses. The article also mentions something called the RI Witness system, a high-tech safety thing used by many IVF clinics to stop mix-ups. Can you explain how that works and why maybe less regulated clinics still have problems, even if systems like that exist?
Yeah, that's a key point. Many reputable, often larger corporate hospitals are using systems like RI Witness. It uses things like barcode verification to meticulously track every single sample, sperm, eggs, embryos through the whole IVF process. It's designed to make sure the right genetic material is used, prevent accidental mix-ups, but smaller clinics or less scrupulous ones, they often lack the infrastructure, maybe the money, or frankly, the ethical commitment to use such strict protocols.
Yeah.
And that just massively increases the risk of mix-ups, or worse, deliberate fraud like we saw here.
Yeah.
It really highlights the desperate need for consistent enforcement across the board to really protect people and ensure ethical practice in this industry.
Right. It shows that laws are one thing, but enforcement and oversight are crucial.
Right.
Okay, while that deep dive exposed a really dark side, our next article brings us something genuinely inspiring, a counter-narrative of systemic progress. We're turning our attention now to Tamil Nadu's really remarkable education revolution. This is from the news section. It's a story of long-term vision driving huge social and economic change.
Yeah, this article does a great job highlighting the deep historical roots of Tamil Nadu's focus on universal education. It points out that way back in 1920, a school under the Madras Corporation Council was the first in India to serve midday meals, an initiative inspired by Justice Party leader P. Thiagaraja Chetty. Then in 1921, the Justice Party passed the historic Communal Government Order, a landmark decree. It ensured education access for all communities, especially the marginalized ones. These weren't just, one-off reforms. They laid the actual foundation, the whole philosophy for the success we see now.
It's incredible how those early steps led to such big, tangible results today. The article mentions recent successes like 135 students from Adi Dravidar and tribal welfare schools getting into top institutions, IITs, NITs, national law universities, Delhi University colleges. These are really competitive places. And the article stresses these are not isolated success stories. They reflect a systemic change. What kind of support systems make that kind of transformation possible?
They absolutely are systemic. The state has carefully built these really comprehensive support systems, covering every stage of education. Students get scholarships right from primary school through to research. There's free education, free textbooks, free uniforms. That hugely reduces the financial burden on families, makes it easier to keep kids in school. for students from remote areas, government hostels with food and board. And it's not just academics. There are skill training programs to get students ready for jobs, plus crucial fee waivers, concessions for entrance exam to those top institutions. It's a whole ecosystem of support.
And they're still innovating, right? The article talks about current schemes.
Absolutely. Building on that legacy, there's the Buhumai Penfitum that gives a 1,000 monthly stipend to girl students from government schools going to college, aims to boost female higher education.
Hmm?
Then Ilam Thedi Kalvi, that was designed specifically to bridge learning gaps caused by the pandemic, and the free breakfast scheme, launched in 2022. That's apparently dramatically improved both attendance and nutrition for younger kids.
The results really do speak for themselves, don't they?
They really do. Tamil Nadu's gross enrollment ratio, the GER in higher education, it's at 47%. The national average is 28.4%.
Wow, that's a huge difference.
It is, and for women, it's even more striking. 47.3% in Tamil Nadu versus 28.5% nationally. These figures are directly linked, the article argues, to the state's long history of social justice movements and how the Dravidian movement successfully institutionalized these educational reforms over decades, making education genuinely accessible.
It really powerfully reaffirms that belief that excellence in education is not the preserve of the privileged, but the natural outcome of providing equal opportunity and support. It's a strong testament to that long-term vision.
It really is. It shows how targeted, equitable education policies can be this powerful engine for social and economic progress. It proves that when you consistently put the right support systems in place, you can unlock incredible potential across all parts of society, leading to real upliftment.
Okay, from stories of societal progress, let's now transition to a complex conservation challenge. Our last deep dive today is into tiger tourism. Striking a balance for conservation from the weekend section. This topic beautifully illustrates that intricate, often tricky relationship between human enthusiasm and protecting wildlife.
Yeah, it's interesting how the article tackles the whole celebrity tiger thing,
Yeah.
like Arrowhead of Ranthambore, and how sometimes, selective sympathy for these popular animals can lead to policies that aren't actually very scientific. Wildlife biologist Sanjay Gubi makes this thought-provoking point against too much interference in animals' lives. He suggests that treating animals like humans, maybe reducing natural deaths, can artificially inflate populations, push them beyond what the habitat can actually support. He worries that people with huge social media followings can pressure authorities into decisions that aren't always best for conservation overall.
That's a challenging perspective for sure. It goes against some common ideas about saving every animal. And the article highlights this steady, significant rise in tourists, right? Ranthambore over 7 lakh visitors this year, Kanha 2.58 lakh. The view seems to be that this surge is putting things out of balance, driven by easier access and, well, social media hype.
Conservationists are definitely raising red flags about this. One big issue is risky tourist behavior. People being too noisy, getting out of their vehicles, misusing phones. There was that alarming report of nearly 30 jeeps surrounding a tiger, honking, yelling. Just awful. Some parks, like Pension Tadoba, have actually banned mobile phones on safari now because of this stuff.
God, phones. Wow.
Yeah. And the other critical worry is unmitigated development, building tourist infrastructure way beyond the ecological carrying capacity. The article gives examples like Corbett Tiger Reserve being basically surrounded by tourist lodges now, cutting off wildlife corridors, and even hosting Bollywood-style wedding parties. Imagine the noise pollution. Ranthambore, too, developing these massive wedding hotels, encroaching further on habitat.
It sounds like maybe the intense focus just on the tiger itself could be overshadowing the bigger picture. The article asks, is there a larger problem with the country's conservation narrative? Too much focus on tigers, maybe. Neglecting the rest of the ecosystem, other animals, the habitats themselves?
That's a really key point, yeah. The tiger's charisma, it definitely draws vital attention, vital funding, no doubt. But if you focus too much on it, you risk neglecting the larger ecosystem it depends on. And it directly makes human-animal conflict worse. Local communities, the ones who've lived alongside wildlife for generations, they bear the real costs. Shrinking forest access, dealing with more tigers and people, sometimes forced relocation, while tourists mostly just get the excitement of conservation without the downsides.
So the locals bear the cost, tourists get the thrill.
Pretty much. The article really stresses how important it is to prioritize local communities for jobs in these parks. Guides, drivers, hotel staff. If they see tangible benefits from conservation, it increases their tolerance for wildlife, reduces conflict.
So it really boils down to this fundamental question, doesn't it? Is wildlife tourism mainly an economic engine? Or should it primarily be an educational tool for conservation?
Sajay Gubby's take on this is pretty clear and quite challenging. He argues conservation, like education or healthcare, shouldn't primarily be expected to make money. He strongly believes tourism should be seen first as an educational tool, kept at a minimum carrying capacity to limit the impact. And crucially, it needs to stay accessible to ordinary people, not become some exclusive, super expensive thing only the rich can afford. That completely shifts the purpose, right? From profit towards genuine preservation and public engagement, fostering a deeper connection with nature.
Thank you for listening. If today's episode gave you something useful, consider following us on Spotify so you're the first to hear the next one. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given in the episode description. We are always eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about. We wish you a great day.